Welcome to Secure Talk, a podcast for security news, innovation, and excellence. Secure Talk is hosted by Justin Beals, founder and CEO of StrikeGraph. Justin has a 20-year career in technology, innovation, and startups.
Welcome to the Secure Talk podcast today. This is your host, Justin Beals. I'm ecstatic to have everyone joining us. We have a really special guest today, a friend, a colleague, a peer, someone that's done some really amazing work, Raffaele Mautone, the CEO and founder of Judy Security. Rafael, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Justin, for having me.
Really glad to have you join today. You are a fellow founder with a security-specific solution. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about that, but we always love kind of talking about your background and how you got into the work that you're doing, especially for our early and career listeners. It's fun to either learn something they should be doing, should not be doing, areas that are exciting to join into. So I'm going to kick it off for us. Before you got into college, we're always curious if there were any kind of formative experiences for you that led to some later decisions that you made.
Yeah, it's funny. I definitely had some great teachers. I was kind of that C student.
Yes.
You know, I don't think people expected me to go too far. For those in the audience, I'm part of the Gen X crew, so parents and adults could be brutally honest at times, I think is the way to position it. But, you know, I think there's that piece that always carries forward with me to like prove myself to in everything I do. The other thing is both my parents are from Italy. So I'm first generation and I'm also the firstborn. So, you know, my dad decided with his siblings to move to the US. They picked Michigan. Not because of the weather, but because that's where the jobs were with the big three back in the 70s and 80s. So even that is always something that carries forward with me, in that, God, he took that huge of a risk, didn't speak any English, and gave me and my sister and brother this opportunity that I never want to let him down. It's just always at the forefront of everything I do, like, in my day to day. So I think those two were probably the biggest things in how I was raised and why I am who I am today. I wouldn't change anything. There's always the good, the bad, and all those things that people say, but it's definitely, it's part of my core, and I see it in my day to day.
So I'm curious about a couple things. I, too, was pretty down the middle GPA student.
Maybe it's a new requirement for founders.
No.
If you're an A student, you're not going to be a good founder.
I was really bad at homework. I did pretty good on the test, but the homework thing was tough. It just felt a little boring. Certainly like the automotive industry must have been an attraction for your family then. Was that something that they came here, that there were just good jobs, or there was some interest in that industry specifically?
Oh, it's just that the jobs, and also at that time, and we're getting to see it again, again over the last year, Detroit was a hub. I mean, and it still is, right? So I think there's been different phases of Detroit. For those of you that haven't visited, you should. And at that time, it was growing, and it was where all the jobs were, regardless of what you were doing. Interestingly enough, no one in my family worked directly in the auto industry. They were all entrepreneurs. So my one uncle opened a pizzeria and still has them today. It's now franchised and, continues to grow. My dad worked in the restaurant industries as a chef. So, that whole helping build a business, I think, is the key that I saw with each of my uncles that came here. And that is the other big thread now that we're talking through this, that inspires me, and I can see it my siblings, and I can see it my cousins going, we've done the traditional paths in our careers. Why not take a chance and go open a business or do something that we're passionate about because we saw our parents doing it? And don't get me wrong, it was hard. So I think that baseline of, we knew it's hard. It was never going to be easy, but it wasn't a fear not to at least try. If they could do it, and they gave us this big opportunity, why wouldn't we, if we weren't satisfied with the career path we took or the companies that we were working for?
And you were eyes wide open about the challenges of building a business, the stress, the danger.
I mean, restaurant pizza, to all the restaurant people out there, it's not easy. I mean, your holidays, long hours. It's funny. Fast forward to my first job, I decided I didn't want to work for the pizza industry anymore. And my uncle, I started waiting tables and bartending. And, when you're in the restaurant and you're just like, 90 hours a week, who cares? I mean, that's what you do, or 120 hours, right? And you're picking up double shifts and all weekends and holidays. So even there, I think it prepped me for what was coming, being in cybersecurity in general, whether it was the bigger companies or, doing a startup.
Yeah, I have to admit, I did my stint in the restaurants too before college. I was not beautiful enough for the front of the house. They put me in the back of the house. So, Rafael, I was looking back through your college a little bit. You studied business communications, attended college in Michigan as well. Were you just continuing that thread of like developing a business sense, building companies? Was that what attracted to you, or was it just a good degree?
Do you want candid, or are we going to give the professional answer?
Please feel as comfortable as you would like. Yes.
At the time, I just wanted to get in and out of college, and I made it into college by the skin of my teeth. I enjoyed college for various reasons. Some of them were academic, others weren't. I joined a fraternity, and all of that were great life lessons, but I wanted to get in and out. And I think the other thing is, rewinding back to my childhood, I was always a talker. I loved to talk. Didn't matter who it was. I used to get warned all the time. You can't just talk to strangers. Like, you gotta, in class, I was always getting reprimanded for talking. And then because my parents spoke Italian, I remember I was 4, the one translating what they were saying to help them in the world. So when my, dean at the university said, "What do you want to do?" I'm like, I just like talking. I tried the business accounting thing, and God bless the finance teams. I am not the Excel wizard calculation person. So that was an epic fail in my freshman year. And so there's like, okay, well, we have a very robust communication plan. You should look into it. And I really enjoyed the professors, and I got to, like you said, I'm not good at tests. Like, I can't sit and just go, I've studied something and I memorized all the answers. Whereas in the communication courses, it was like, okay, get up there and present. Yeah. Get up there and, debate. Get up there, and it was like, oh, okay, well, these are my talking skills. Let me refine that. Let me learn that. And I graduated from Eastern, and I'm very thankful, because I do think that as I got into the world, it was an advantage that I had the communication, right? Any company I joined, they trained you on everything else. So, my first job, I guess official job, was Dell Computers. I had no idea what a computer was. This was when, the commercials with the running cow boxes and Dell and, and all the other ones were fighting each other to emerge as a computer at the forefront of computers. So they were just like, wow, you can communicate. You can sell. You could get on the phone. You can hold a conversation. That's very unique. We can train you on what a gig is, what a memory card is, right? And here's all the features to sound like you know what you're talking about on computers when you're in sales. So it laid the foundation of being able to do the things that I do. And I'm very thankful for it. It's interesting because, I'm very involved with my university, and I always tell students now, like, get the communication major. It's a huge advantage, especially because of what's happened over the last 5 years. I mean, we've been living in this Zoom world. We're attached to these phones. I meet some amazing people on Zoom, or even privately and face to face, but you put them in front of a group, or how to engage in a sales conversation, or reading body language. You start to go, okay, this is the component that's missing. We'll train you on everything else when it comes to cybersecurity.
Yeah. Well, my experience tracks with yours. I have a theater degree, and I think that it's served me really well in exactly kind of certainly ability to communicate, ability to be on stage. I always tell sales folks that I meet, I'm I'm not a salesperson. I'm not professionally trained in it. The one thing I've leaned back on is all those improv classes way back in the day. It helps really well to keep a conversation rolling and find out from a potential client or partner, what they're dealing with. So, so you're talking a little bit about Dell. So you jumped right into computing and sales, right? So went from business communication to sales.
Corporate job. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sales and home sales in Dell, working in the queue. So as the 1-800 number would flash on the television, our queue would, flood with customers interested, and even had their coupons that they, got out of the newspaper for Dell computers.
Yeah.
To then going over to the business side after a year on the consumer side. And I did about 5 years at Dell in various roles. And because they were growing so fast, I jumped from, which was not realistic in the real world, I jumped from inside sales to business sales to manager to RD. And it all happened within a 5-year period. And I was still under 29 years old because they were growing at such a fast pace in Austin. They couldn't hire people. It got to the point where, which is how they found me, we would go to restaurants, retail, and find the people who had good communication skills. And we'd offer them to come in and interview because we knew that was the biggest pockets of people that were successful on our queue.
Yeah. So Rafael, then you went over to McAfee, and it feels like you made a transition from sales to operations.
Well, I joined this little company called McAfee. I had no idea what I was doing. I just took the job, and it was a point product with Magic Sniffer under Network General as an umbrella. And I did sales. I did government sales. So GHE, that's where you really cut your teeth on sales cycles and communications. And then, I moved over. And then I did move into operations. I was the wild card that they said, you keep complaining about CRM. You come over to ops and help us with CRM and our processes. So as we grew, I started getting a little technical, which was weird because I didn't realize that was in me. But I enjoyed it. I loved finding a problem and fixing it. So CRM back then was a very big problem on-prem, and how do we fix it before the cloud offerings started coming? And then I jumped into IT. And the reason there goes back to what we keep talking about. The CIO says, I have all the technical people. I don't have someone that can communicate back to the business and understand their needs and then bring it into IT and change the conversation around and empower both organizations. And so that's how I ended up in IT, did bounce back and forth between ops and IT. And as we went global, amazing experience, got to see every country that McAfee had an office at because we were opening up the offices or training. And so I feel like I traveled the globe well before I was 40 with the company. And then, when Intel acquired us, I left and went and joined some of the McAfee team members over at FireEye, which was my first taste of a startup. And growing over a 3-year period, the IPO. And then from there, got a little tired after the IPO because that was a huge lift.
Yeah.
Decided to move back home because I was living in Texas. So I moved to Michigan to be closer to my dad and family, and joined this little company called Duo. And again, I believed in the technology because I had rolled it out at FireEye. So they didn't have to sell me on the technology, just where did I fit in the organization? And that's when the founder said, you're our CIO. And I just kind of looked at him like, wow, okay. That was an evolution I never thought I would land in, but it went back to that whole thing. They said and my boss, who she's now on our board, had done that transformation as well. She went from ops into IT, and it was because all the CIOs now were becoming these people that could communicate.
Yes.
Right? And hold deep conversations and be strategic, like on the ops side with the business, right? And then transforming the IT organization because everyone was moving into the cloud. So it was a great stint at Duo for over 4 years, and left after the Cisco acquisition, and then started Judy Security, which is where we're at today.
So I'm drawing a little thread here. Effective communication practices, ability to take complex topics and make them understandable, being able to create a vision and communicate that vision. It sounds like it was a really important thread in your career growth and the opportunities you were able to take advantage of.
Yeah. And here's the thing. I tell founders all the time, because everyone wants to be a founder. If you can't communicate, or you're not able to quickly on a dime present your company in front of me without being nervous, or a group of investors or customers, that is the number one thing you need to work on. It's not the product. It's not the services. It's not the team you have hired. Can you, as one of the leaders, the founder or co-founder or whatever, stand in front of an audience of 100 people and present and talk? And maybe you don't have time to even prepare. Like, it's just as founders, we get told all the time, okay, we're going to throw you in front of a group of investors, pitch. And you're like, okay, here we go. Right. So I think communication is the piece for especially founders, but for everyone, that the business world will need from you, regardless of your role.
Yeah. Speaking of being a founder, tell us about Judy Security.
Yeah. So we started Judy Security in 2019 from Detroit, Michigan. The goal is, as we all know, there's 3,500 point products out there. They all maybe started in SMB, but gravitate towards the enterprise, or they, long list of reasons. But fundamentally, the tool sets are designed for the enterprise, and they're heavy. They require staff, and they're costly. So over that transformation of career, that I've described to you, it's always been in the back of my head, God, if you could solve SMB for cybersecurity, in the US alone, there's 32 million that are being left behind. Yes, they may have purchased antivirus or something on their laptop. They may have done the password dance, but they've never experienced the full scope of cybersecurity like the enterprise has over the last 20 years. So for many of them, this is the beginning of their journey. So what could we design that could enable and help them at a price that they could afford? And so we did start with Judy. At that time, AI and machine learning were just evolving. So how could we take Judy and take some of that low-hanging fruit off of the SOC team that is repetitive, high volume of alerts, whatever, pushing a user and guiding them in a nurturing way versus punitive. And so that's how we came up with Judy AI. From there, we built Password Manager, passwordless single sign-on, MFA filtering, and EDR. And we looked at that and we started putting it in front of customers, and they're like, you're checking all the boxes. This is great. And I can afford it. And that's where we knew we were on the right path. So over the last 5 years, we've continued to enhance and grow the application. We resell our product with MSPs predominantly. Okay. So over 98% of our business is through channel partners. Most of them are MSPs or MSSPs, or they're virtual CISOs. And even there, as you know, like we said, you and I think alike, and we've been working together in different aspects. They are the best individuals to listen to for a product. A customer is going to roll it out, but they've never experienced cybersecurity, right? Or they bits and pieces and have perception. MSPs are dealing with the day-to-day. So they are the backbone of most small businesses for the IT stuff, as I would say, right? That's your printers, your Wi-Fi, whatever. But they're also being pulled in by these customers now going, how can you help me with cybersecurity? And they know they can't stitch a bunch of point products together that is going to not be a burden on them, or that they have to hire a big team, right? Yeah. And so we enable them in a way they've never been enabled before. And their customers are happy because they're not IT. Judy's guiding, Judy's protecting. And even the brand, and, when people go look at our website, Judy's intended to not be punitive or gimmick. I mean, I'm sure you've all watched the Super Bowl ads. We still use fear. We still use gimmicks. And it's all white noise to us now, right? And so that's what we have positioned ourselves, and we're starting to go globally. So we're in North America, Australia, and Africa right now, with Judy rolling out to our different partners.
I had this criticism when I started in this space with StrikeRef a little bit. I was like, I do not want a red branding.
Yeah, the red shield, right? Red color at all. Yeah.
Yes. Please, can we do something calming and soothing, and solutions are here. And I also really struggle with this deep fragmentation around the point solution. It's like, it was very hard to understand what you should buy, what you shouldn't buy, depending on who you were, and it felt like you had to get some expert advice to kind of identify what needed to be in the mix. I think it's what's really cool about the platform is you're kind of focused on a market segment in the SMB space, and you're picking the right set of security solutions at that kind of scale of customer, right? Are there things you've thrown out that you're like, this is too complicated, and it's, it really only happens upstream or when you get bigger? Yeah.
Everyone goes, well, why didn't you just white label a bunch of products? They wouldn't work together. And Judy couldn't drive. I mean, what am I white labeling here? Another product that is going to be complex or too expensive or requires an army of people? Those are already out there. So why not go in the opposite direction and build out something that they want and can use, and it doesn't break the bank? So, and I also think it's a different lens, right? Like you're saying, what did you throw out? We did look at things and they claimed they were SMB, and then you're like, this is enterprise. Like, you're assuming they have a staff of 20 SOC team members. I'm telling you, they have no one. The 50 employee company has no one. It's usually an HR person, a technical person, and they're trying to just provision whatever is needed and move on back to their day job. They're not sitting there looking at logs, right? And so that's where Judy and our managed, defense team come in, right? And can take all of that burden away from a small business owner or a partner. Partners are wonderful. They give you feedback, but they've been burned by the industry as well, right? So we talk about the coloring and the fear. The partner ecosystem has consistently been burned. And we even did it at McAfee. Oh, we love you. Here's big discounts. You onboard all these customers. A year later, we're bringing them direct. Or you have to pay more money. And that's what's happening in the industry right now. We're seeing all these enterprise organizations claim they work with SMB. They might. But more importantly, they're burning MSPs and partners that have built their business around them or with them. And then they change the program, which on a flip of a dime, because they can legally in the contracts. And it's a scramble. And we're seeing this now with so many of these big companies that we all know in the industry.
Rafael, I really appreciate what you're saying about treating the business relationships that we have in good faith, with good agreement, that we want to follow through and not shift up on them. And you're seeing it hit the partnership marketplace. It makes it hard for anyone else to develop trustworthy partnerships. And I have this passion for building ethical businesses in a way. And one of the things that I really push with my team is that the closer we are, the less steps there are between us and the person that's getting value from us, partner or customer, the better we will be at responding to what they need in the moment.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing is companies now have to rebuild that trust with partners. They've been burned so many times that when you are genuinely trying to help them like we do, they sometimes don't believe it. And so, everyone in our organization knows that we will take feedback, good or bad, and we will take it internally. And how do we improve on whatever it is and get back to that partner, even if we don't have the answer at the moment, the right answer, not something that they want to hear.
Yeah.
And it goes, if you relate it back to what we say, waiting tables, I'm not going to walk out to a table and go, oh yeah, your steak's going to be ready in 10 minutes and it's 45 minutes later. What will happen? The customer's going to go, you lied and the steak isn't done correctly, right? So you take those concepts that we've learned in communications and, other industries and go, we should apply the same approach to the partner community, and they do respond. It takes time. I've seen partners that told us no 2 years ago are now our best partners because they trust us and we work with them and we listen. Yeah. And they're making more money. So, and we're not going to rip the carpet out from under them. And when, like other companies do on their annual renewals. Yeah,
exactly. So one of the things that I'm interested in your perspective on is some of the risks and vulnerabilities that small and mid-sized businesses should really be focused on as opposed to the large enterprise. Is there a perspective that you have on what's unique to those groups and the types of solutions they should really consider?
Yeah, I always tell people, listen, you're a founder, you're a small business, whatever. Your social security number is probably all over the place. You need to call the credit bureaus and lock your credit down. I say that to everyone that comes into discussions with us. That's easy. It's free. You just do it with one credit bureau and then the rest of them lock it. Your bank account, make sure you have the two-factor turned on. Make sure you have notifications turned on that if there's a charge of over $500 or someone tries to take $500 out, they call, they email, they text you, whatever it is. But that's like that's like the soft rules of cyber, that people go, wait, is that cybersecurity? Well, it kind of is, because you're blocking your social security number and you're preventing your bank account from phishing, right?
Yeah.
So, and when we look at what is the number one thing for all businesses, because we just saw it, unfortunately, again, over the last 6 months, even with the enterprise, it's phishing. When you click on something, is it really what it's supposed to be? And with AI, this is going to get worse. So am I really clicking on that Chase bank account that Justin forwarded me on email? Well, guess what? We're all busy. You didn't hover over Justin. You don't see that the email is a fake Justin email. And that link that looks exactly like Chase has one little dash in the middle. And you click on it. And it now has the ability to access your login. It sends it back and they go into a real Chase account, and they've breached your account. So phishing is still number one across the industry. With Judy, we scan everything that's coming in and block anything that's a phishing attempt, either in the browser or on the email. So you can do a couple things with phishing. Education. So, okay, if I get an email, do I know this person? No? Hover over the email. There are some, a lot of platforms now within their email systems are already scanning and blocking for spam and phishing. So there's some out of the toolboxes there that are already doing it.
Yeah.
With sophistication, though, you are going to have to eventually, as you grow and your brand grows, you are going to have to do something to protect yourself. Training the organization is one. 2, software, like we talked about. And then 3, if you get something and you're not sure, if you're just not sure, step out of whatever it is, go type it in your browser. So if you say, well, I don't know if this is Chase, then go type Chase in your browser. I don't know if this phone number is real, then go type it into the browser. Every company on the planet has a website, and you'll see the phone number, the contact details, all the website, everything. And if as humans, sometimes we are like, I should have listened to my gut. When it comes to phishing, listen to your gut.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like the company you're normally acting with. You've never heard of this person. There's grammatical errors. Although if it's from me, I'm sorry. My team wants to kill me sometimes. That's me going too fast. So you should call me on my cell phone. Is this you? Yes, I'm sorry. I misspelled that. That's where you start to go, okay, these are my gut's telling me something. Take a second. And then the other thing is, if you're in critical roles at a company or, small business, if you're the finance person, do your diligence, man. I mean, you're the center point of who they want to breach. You're the owner. You're in commercials for your business because you're selling a cake or a restaurant or a law firm or whatever.
Yeah.
You're a target. You are the face of the company and you're a target. And then the other thing is, we have to be careful with our friends and family. We love them, but they forward you things that they shouldn't be forwarding or send you things, right? And so think of it this way. It's that 3x3 that a hacker is looking at. I may not go directly to hack Justin. I'm going to go look at who's Justin connected to, get in that way, friends, family, associates, people he works with, and then I'll get to Justin in a couple months by just picking and choosing who I can trick with phishing or hacking or anything else. So that's still number one. This whole phishing and finding a way to breach in one way, shape, or form to get into either your organization as a small business or the larger organizations that you work with.
I tell new team members that start with us that you shouldn't trust any form of communication that I don't have to log into. So email, SMS, I don't have to log into those for it to seem like you got a message from me. I do have to log into Slack. I do need to log into other systems where we might communicate. And I'll use those systems much more than I would ever send you an email asking for you to do something sensitive. Yeah.
And I think that's the soft rule as well, now that you're saying that, because I think we all say that is, okay, as the owner of the business, I would never text you or email saying, hey, buy a bunch of gift cards, or hey, send me the credit card information.
Yeah.
That should be a phone conversation, or I'm standing in front of you, right? Like, and like you said, I've logged in via, Zoom or Slack or something, not, oh, I got an email from Rafael and I'm going to go order a bunch of gift cards.
Yeah.
Wire transfer money.
I had a question I was a little curious about. It's outside security a little bit, but you founded Judy Security in Detroit, really far away from Silicon Valley in a way, but an amazing town unto itself. I'm a big techno fan, so Detroit's one of the towns that brought the music I love to life. Really love that. So I'm just curious about the pros and cons of being outside of the Silicon Valley halo, founding a technology company. What was great and what was a challenge?
I grew up in Silicon Valley, fundamentally, directly and indirectly. Even though I lived in Texas, I was out there almost once a month, especially when I worked at McAfee and FireEye. Nothing wrong with Silicon Valley. I love it. I think it's amazing.
Yeah.
When I was starting my company, and this feeds off of what we saw with Duo. Duo was in Ann Arbor, right? So they were Michigan-based.
Yep.
And although Silicon Valley was over here with this big halo, guess what happened? We created our own halo over here in Michigan, and people are going, wait, you have an MFA, but who's this little green company in Ann Arbor that's like kicking butt and they're cool and they have this Midwestern approach to things and their technology is amazing. Parts of what I picked off of is what I saw with Duo, right? For a couple of reasons. Michigan is amazing. We pump out all the engineers with our universities here that go to Silicon Valley, right? So don't get me wrong. I know there's a lot of universities out that way, but University of Michigan is sitting right here next door, as well as 25 other universities that are doing engineering, manufacturing, and now cybersecurity, because they know this is the industry that's growing. The other thing is, we go back to my childhood. I love downtown Detroit. We used to go to downtown Detroit all the time as a kid. And that's because my family was from Italy. We would go to Canada, which is literally a 20-minute drive over the bridge. And there's a huge Italian community there. So on the way back, we would stop in downtown Detroit and it was amazing. The Tigers Stadium, the shopping, the food, right? It's just this melting pot. Yes, there were the 90s where things went ugly and we'll just leave it back in the past. But then when I moved back here, I started going to downtown Detroit, and this was when I was at FireEye, and before I went to Duo, and I'm like, this place is amazing. Dan Gilbert's like turning this around, and regardless of what people think of Dan Gilbert, he turned around the city, and he did it in a way that aligns to our culture here in Detroit, which is, yes, he took on the big lift of remodeling all these historical buildings. Mm-hmm. But he sold them back to other companies that didn't just want to deal with the remodel, right?
Yeah.
And this is before the pandemic. So I think people forget Detroit was viewed based on this architectures in the early 1900s as the Paris of the U.S. because all these builders, everything was happening with the auto industry, right? The historical buildings in downtown Detroit are breathtaking. I mean, look up the train station that Ford and Google have now spent $4 billion on remodeling. For those of you that are, ever watched Transformers or any of the movies, that building they're blowing up and running cars into, that's the train station. And now it's completely remodeled back to its glory. And it's going to be the autonomous vehicle center for Ford. So that's just one of 20 buildings in downtown Detroit that have been completely revamped. All 4 stadiums are now in downtown Detroit. So the Tigers, you all heard about the Lions, you have the Red Wings and you have the Pistons. So 4 stadiums are within a couple blocks of each other, and we have gambling. So you have all the casinos, and now it's just being complemented with shopping, living, and a lot of tech or startup organizations coming to Detroit, because here now what is happening, the universities are pumping out all these graduates. They don't want to leave. They want to go live in downtown Detroit, especially Midtown, which is the hot area, right? And so for me, the evolution over the 5 years is that not only do I love Detroit, I really do. It's part of my core as a kid. When you start asking me about Detroit, I could go on for hours. Like, there's this and that. And people tease me all the time. They're like, God, I'm going to email you. You're like my tour guide for Detroit. I'm like, email me. I'll send you the list, right? But we hustle. We hustle in Detroit.
Yeah.
I'm not suggesting Silicon Valley doesn't. But when you're the underachiever as a city and all your founders are sitting here, at least 5 years ago, going, I can't get funding. We are minority viewed and who we are. It's been exciting to watch the last 5 years, right? Now there's big VCs and think tanks and everything's wrapping around Detroit. So I think Silicon Valley will always have its value. I will never speak poorly of Silicon Valley. I love Silicon Valley. I just think what we're seeing not only with Detroit, there are other hubs that are growing now, and that's okay. It complements Silicon Valley, and it gives opportunity for people to create companies and go into the marketplace, but more importantly, get funding and have that light shine in a way that's different. And that's helped us. We're this cybersecurity company in Michigan again. And, now Michigan has, I think they've counted about 25 of them sprouted out, either from Duo directly or indirectly, starting to become a major hub between Detroit and Ann Arbor. I have to say Ann Arbor, or my friends in Ann Arbor are going to kill me. So it's a Southeast Michigan group. And then we're starting to see that now even on the West Side, which is great.
I love this word, hustle. I grew up in Atlanta. I founded my first companies in Atlanta. And I didn't get out to a Silicon Valley experience until I'd already been a founder a couple of times over. And I was really surprised at the lack of interest in getting your hands dirty sometimes. And I knew growing up in Atlanta and having to build companies there that there wasn't capital available when I first started founding businesses. And so you had to build the company. And I think there was a little bit more focus. And today it's a lot better than it was maybe in 2021 on the fundamentals of a business. What makes a healthy company is not always growth, right? And so I'm a little grateful for it. And I certainly think we build a better economy, marketplace, opportunity for all of us and great ideas to thrive when we're a little more paying attention to fundamental work and the joy of the effort. Yeah. Rafael, one of the things we love to do on Secure Talk is talk a little bit about a breach and review a recent breach. So what we're going to do is review a recent breach for a mid-sized organization. I'd love to get a little bit of your perspective on it. So I'll start off by describing the breach that happened, and then we can dive into our thoughts about it. Whitworth University is a small private Christian university located in Spokane, Washington. The school manages information for more than 3,000 students a year. Whitworth University became aware of a sophisticated hack of their systems on July of 2022. The Whitworth University attack occurred by a group of hackers that broke into the network and began copying and encrypting files. They leveraged their position to try and get a ransom from Whitworth. The attackers asked for a ransom to give the information back and to keep from spreading the data around the internet. The attack occurred on July 29th, 2022. And after a full investigation, it was determined that over 65,500 students were affected by the total breach. The majority of data taken during the breach was personal student information. Data included social security numbers, health information, birth dates, student ID numbers, passport numbers, and more. That information could be seriously harmful to the students involved in the breach, and there was reason for them to be worried about what will happen to their data. I think this resonates to our social security question earlier about, protection. We like to describe the response. So how did Whitworth respond to this particular breach? In July of 2022, students and parents at Whitworth University were unable to access their information via university websites. rumors began via Instagram of a potential ransomware attack on university systems. 3 weeks later, Whitworth acknowledged for the first time that the institution had been hit by a cyber attack. The university would not confirm or deny the rumors that the cyber attack involved a ransom. Days later, the Lockbit ransomware group claimed responsibility for the attack, indicating that it had stolen 715 gigabytes of data and set a ransom deadline of August 23rd. Whitworth University informed the state attorney general's office in October that a data breach that summer was a ransomware attack and that may have affected thousands of former and current students. And currently there is a lawsuit filed in June of 2023 in the U.S. District Court of Spokane, Washington, that alleges Whitworth was negligent in allowing the still unidentified attacker to access health, financial, personal data of past, present students, security, and faculty. So this is a pretty brutal breach that Whitworth went through. And it seems like they were able to get through the network here. Any thoughts, broadly on ransomware, mid-size or small-size companies? Certainly phishing is a vulnerability, but there's plenty of others.
Well, it's happening to a lot of universities, unfortunately, since then. I think the key, we have a theme here, Dustin. Do you have a communication plan for a breach?
Right.
The reason why they couldn't communicate with the parents and the students is everything's locked down. Everything. They couldn't even tell you who the students and parents were during that period of time that the hackers took control of everything.
Yeah.
That's the problem, right? So outside of your database that's sitting there and they now have locked up, how do you communicate with students to let them know it's happening? So the frustration levels, I understand, but you have to rewind and go, we're a technology globe now. People don't have a phone book sitting on their desk anymore going, I need to call these 3,000 students and warn them real time.
Yeah.
So what is your communication plan for any organization if you are locked down by ransomware, right? Because what will transpire once it's locked down, yes, there'll be the ransomware. There'll be attorneys looking. If it's an amount that's large enough, the FBI will be involved. That also feeds into the timeline of what they can say and can't do, right?
Right.
So not only is everything locked down and they can't access anything, they may not be able to say anything because FBI is involved, right? Like we saw with a couple of the other universities that this happened to more recently, or the legal teams involved going, do you pay this? There's just so many things happening at once. I feel bad for them. I think it's just this horrific moment that you think you're going to work, you're logging in and the whole school is shut down, right?
Yeah.
So I think they responded to it as best as they could because there's not a template for how to handle this. So what should businesses do? You do disaster recovery if your servers go down. If you're in the software industry or financial industry or whatever, what would you do if you couldn't get into your company?
Yeah.
And how do you put in the safeguards now to say, okay, we are a hospital. We need to update all the patients. Where do we have the patient's information that is not tied to a computer and they could lock it down?
Yeah.
Right? It's those steps and that lens of a disaster that we have to start applying to companies internally when it comes to a ransom attack.
Yeah.
Because we're all technology and it's like, okay, well, you were technology yesterday. Today it's 1985 and you're sitting there with a phone and a desk. So what are you going to do? Because that's how far they go when they take control of everything.
I think one thing that really stands out to me too, Rafael, is you can't put your data in one basket. There's nothing wrong with having a paper backup copy of everyone. I realize it's a big filing cabinet, but you may need it. Yeah.
Or it's encrypted somewhere, or your legal team, which is a different, if you have outside legal services, they have it somewhere, right? It's like, what do you do to protect your data and your bank accounts in a way that is not the traditional path we've done over the last 5 years?
Yeah. It's interesting. I agree with you. I think the question is more like, when are you going to experience a security incident? Not if
Right.
you are going to experience a security incident. And so we are definitely really, it's helpful for us to review some of these interactions so that we can understand what happened and the impact of it, and broadly across our marketplace, improve the way we do security and our operational maturity. Rafael, it's been such a pleasure having you on the Secure Talk podcast. I hope you enjoyed your time with us today.
I did. This was awesome. I didn't realize it was the full hour, so this is great. I appreciate you having me on.
Excellent. Well, we are really glad to get a chance to talk with you about the excellent work that Judy Security is doing, and we wish you absolutely the best of luck.
I really appreciate it, Justin. Thank you.